This is a series of public awareness and education and communication exercise that we carry out every year. But the significance of the 11th is coming in February. Traditionally, we have been doing it in August, but deliberately we have brought it in February. And what you asked whether it sits well, it sits perfect with what is going out in the public domain at the moment. As you will recall, in 2012, the government banned the use of GM foods, use of even import of GM foods, thereby basically putting us in a freezer. We went into a cold room for 10 years. And now, with the lifting of the ban on genetically modified foods and crops, we are more or less coming out of the freezer. And this is the time that we are now positioning ourselves to fully implement our mandate. We have been carrying out research approvals. But you see, research cannot continue for research's sake. Anyone who is engaged in research is doing that to provide a solution that should find its way into the dining table, into the agriculture production systems. Now, so the period that has been there 10 years, that is what we have been doing. So this conference comes at the right time, because there is also quite a lot of discourse out there regarding GMO. It tells us that what is out there is either the public doesn't have information or sufficient information, or the public has the wrong information, not the right information. And our role, therefore, is to step out, break it down into this is what it is, this is not what it is.
Science can be complicated. GMOs are complicated in terms of the science, the social impact, the environmental considerations. People want to know a lot of different things. So it's not like you one day do one event and say GMOs are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that's it. There's a way in which we have to give people time to process, to layer their understanding and go on a journey with us. So you need to commit to taking people along till they get to a point of understanding.
And therefore our role comes out clear as ensuring and assuring the safety of GMOs or GM technology in human health and in relation to animal health, and also in relation to provision of adequate protection of the environment. The executive order of 2023, the number 1, has moved us from education to agriculture, effectively giving us the opportunity to use the devolved government structures. You know, agriculture is devolved, and therefore we can ride on that architecture on the county to take this message to the grassroots. We are able to demonstrate how what we do contributes to food security and eventually to socioeconomic development. The role of the National Biosafety Authority is to ensure that the scientist doesn't go wrong and do stuff that would be detrimental, and also to assure the skeptics and the public general that what we have passed through our regulatory system, the checks and balances that we've put in place to check safety, and when we put a seal of approval, that indeed is safe. Shortly after the lifting of the ban, so we started now getting questions from potential importers, those who would want to import either for food, for feed, or for processing. And we answered questions. What do we have to do? Fill in this form, pay this regulatory fee, bring in, tell us how much you're bringing, where is it coming from? We did that kind of breakdown of what they needed to do. As this was going on, a group of people went to court and petitioned the court on matters of violation of the Constitution and areas of public participation and those other concerns. So 2 petitions were launched. In one of those petitions by the Peasants League, the court gave orders. The court said no distribution, no cultivation, no importation of GM products. So again, we are at that stage where that process is going on within the judicial system, and we are participants, we are respondents in those petitions. Coming back to the 11 tons that Caro said would be made available the coming planting season, basically for farmers to grow, to meet also the requirement of demonstration, so that you grow and I come and see what it is, so that if I see this is also good for me, then I can choose what to do with it. But that has been put again on hold in view of the court order. But that plan, we had drawn it, we had made a provision. CARO, together with ATF, had secured the quantity, and we were now at a phase where we would identify where do we take it to for purposes of farmer education, farmer demonstration. GM technology is not a silver bullet. It is not coming to solve all problems of agricultural productivity. For example, BT cotton is addressing one pest. So the technology, therefore, is an additional tool in the farmer's toolkit. In his box, the farmer has fertilizer, has pest control equipment, has soil analysis, has irrigation, you know. All those are things that the farmer uses. Now we are adding modern biotechnology to address very specific constraints for purposes of enhancing productivity and helping the farmer. The trouble that we encounter here largely in Kenya and in this part of the world is drought, that which we're experiencing at the moment. If we found maize, for example, that is drought tolerant, it will go a long way in enhancing in ensuring that farmers can at least have a crop even when the rains fail.
I'm here at a time when we have numbers like 6 million Kenyans are facing famine. You're seeing nearly 1 million lactating mothers are not getting the nutrients they need. So you're looking at unborn children suffering severe fetal distress. It seems to me that when you get to that point, you're in a crisis situation. It's a disaster situation. At that point, you need to look at what your array of options are. It is now not, you don't have the luxury that many global north countries have, which, because they have many choices, they can say, well, we want to go fully organic because we want to be as natural as possible. We have a basic problem of finding food, just enough food to eat on a daily basis to live for till the next day. So it's not even about choices, it's just about ending hunger.
The ban, for example, was so stringent, we wouldn't allow emergency food aid. We know that this is largely managed by the World Food Programme, which is a UN program. And therefore, this is not commercial. That corn soy largely will be sourced from the US or Argentina, where almost 100% of soybean is GM. Almost 95–99% of maize is GM. So by allowing the importation, by allowing the use of that as a food and feed in Kenya, we are therefore ensuring that these families that are in distress, because the bottom line, this food is safe between you and me, because it has been approved wherever for use as a food, feed, and for processing. So people are using it. It is being fed on in the US, in South Africa, wherever. So that lifting of the ban, therefore, or the technologies will do, will allow these families that have a food deficit access to that very useful emergency food aid. And therefore, again, this helps in alleviating suffering that is associated with food deficit. Finally, a lot of yellow maize out there, which is largely used for animal feed, is GM. Now, if we can't import, it means, therefore, that the animal feed manufacturers cannot access it at a price that is cheaper, because when you look for the non-GM, it has a premium price, and therefore, our animal feed industry and our livestock industry here suffers. If we can access that, part of it, by the way, is a byproduct of manufacture of ethanol. It is called dried distillers grains with solubles, in short DDGs. Is the waste, the byproduct. If we can access that for use in animal feed manufacture, we shall have animal feed that is of high quality with the levels of protein that is required, and as a result, we shall reduce the pressure on the white maize that is used for food, thereby bringing down the cost of food and also of feed.
A lot of the fears that the general public have about GMOs and most technologies is that, is anybody regulating this? Is anybody taking care of us? Is anybody policing the scientists? And what was spoken about in the opening sessions by Professor Odua, who gave a wonderful talk about GMOs and just science communication generally, was that the public should be really confident about the stringent regulations. Before you think about a research, you submit a research proposal. It is analyzed, you get a license to even go into a laboratory, do that. By the time you've done it, your results are analyzed. Then you go into doing confined field trials. Then you go into national field trials. Then you take a huge leap to commercialization, by which point other agencies come in, KEFIs, KEBS, all the others, like 10 other regulators. So the public should be confident that these regulators have their interest at heart. That is what government does, set up these independent bodies to regulate what comes out in the markets. We are putting a lot of energy this whole year into committing to taking the Kenyan public with us on a journey of understanding science. We know that these things are complicated. We know that your fears may be different from your neighbor's fears. Some of you are afraid of the health implications. Some of you are afraid of the environmental. Some of you are worried about the power of multinationals. They're different fears. And we want to go along with the Kenyan public to begin to have a conversation where you can make up your own mind based on facts. We're not trying to get people to all agree, because that never happens anyway, but you're trying to get people to disagree based on facts.